Gamers, and you're watching episode 30 of Left Hand Reviews. And today I'm going to take a look at a classic board game that really doesn't get the attention that it deserves anymore. And that game, of course, is Ra. Ra is really the quintessential auction and set collection game for the new gamer. A lot of people will introduce gamers to Ticket to Ride and Carcassonne. In my opinion, those are good games to start with, but if you want to introduce somebody into an auctioning mechanic, you're going to want to show them Ra. And Ra is an excellent game released in 2006 by Dr. Rainier Knizia, and has gone through a lot of different versions. This happens to be the Uber Play edition, which in my opinion is probably the best one because it has the large tiles and the components are very nice in this. So anyway, basically Ra is an abstraction of ancient Egypt. We're going to be collecting various Egyptian monuments and artifacts and such things in order to score points, and this all surrounds a very strong auction mechanism as well as a really neat press your luck mechanic. So let's take a look at what comes in the box, and I'm going to show you how to play Ra. Opening up Ra, first thing you're going to see here are some player aids that are printed off of BGG. Now, in my opinion, these are basically essential to playing the game, especially if you are teaching it to new players. It's going to make the game a heck of a lot easier, and I'll explain that in a little bit. You're going to have a full-color rulebook that does a really good job of explaining the game and giving you plenty of examples. You're not really going to have any trouble learning the game from reading that. In the Uber Play edition, you're going to have this nice quad fold board. This is where you're going to be placing the various Ra tiles up here, the auction tiles down here. And also in the corner here is going to give you a cheat sheet to how each thing is scored. Now in my opinion, these are about as easy to read as hieroglyphics. So that's why I think those player aids are really, really helpful. You're going to have this bag here, which is all your point tokens here. They're basically tablets that are going to have point values of 1, 2, 5, and 10, I believe. You're going to collect these as you score points. You have this really nice wooden Ra figure. The various sun tiles. These are basically your currency that you're bidding with. I think they go up to 16 or so. And then finally, you have this nice cloth bag that is full of all the auction tiles. The tiles that you're going to be auctioning. Just grab a couple out here. Okay, so let me set up a game and I'll show you how it plays. This is how you're going to set up a 3-player game of Ra. Essentially, all you need to know is that each player is going to start with 10 points here, with two 5-point tablets. And the reason for starting off with points is you can actually lose points as the game goes on. So you got to start off with some so you can lose them. You're going to put the value 1 sun tile in the center here. The Ra guy can just be placed wherever. And each player is going to start with either 3 or 4 sun tiles, depending on the number of players. And you just have to reference the rule book to see the sets of sun tiles that are given to each player. So the first thing that you're going to do on your turn is you can either call Ra, which means you are initiating an auction, or you can draw a tile from the bag. So let's say the first player is going to start by drawing a tile out of the bag. So we'll start here with player 1. They're going to draw a tile out of the bag and place it here onto the into the auction area. And that's the end of their turn. Now it's going to move to player 2. Player 2 can either call Ra, which is initiating an auction, or draw another tile. Let's say they draw another tile. Okay, they draw this one here. Now to player 3. Player 3 is going to draw another tile. And then we're going to move to player 1. Player 1 really likes what they see out here on the board, so they're going to call Ra. So they're going to grab the Ra guy, say Ra. That is the initiation of an auction, and the player that called Ra immediately gets to become the auctioneer, meaning auctioning will start with the player clockwise to their left. In this case, player 2. Each player is going to have one and only one bid to try to claim what is on the board. And they're going to bid using their sun tiles. And you can always pass. You don't obviously have to bid if you don't want to. So player 2 sees this and says, that's okay, I don't really care, but I would pay 3 for it. So they're going to say, okay, I bid 3. Player 3 here doesn't like what they see, so they're going to pass. Now it comes back to player 1, who's the auctioneer. They always get the final bid, and they're going to say 4. So they're going to win the bid with 4. Player 2 is going to take their 3 back. And so player 1 is going to take these 3 tiles and this number 1 here, and that's going to go in their area but flip down. So not only are you bidding for the tiles, but you're also bidding for more sun tiles. But it gets flipped over. The reason it gets flipped over is that it will be used in the second round. So you need to be careful. When you're bidding on things, you need to also keep in mind what auctions or sun tiles you're going to be winning, because that's going to determine how strong your sun tile hand is for the next round. So if you keep winning bids and grabbing small sun tiles, so you start the next round with 1, 2, 4, and 5, you're going to have a really tough time getting a lot of good auction tiles because you're not going to have a very strong bidding currency hand. Since the auction's over, we're just going to move now to player 2. Player 2 is going to draw from the bag. Player 3 will draw from the bag. And it's just going to continue around until people call raw or continue drawing from the bag. When this whole area here fills up with tiles, it's going to initiate an immediate, automatic, and mandatory raw. If any player wins, or whoever wins that auction, is going to obviously collect all the tiles and the sun tile as per normal. If nobody bids on the forced raw, then all these are going to be scraped off, and you basically just continue on as per normal. There is a specific tile called the raw tile, which are these guys. Whenever you draw one of these, it's going to initiate an automatic, immediate, and mandatory raw. And you're going to place these up here. With 3 players, you'll place from here over, with 4 from here over, and 5 from here over, and this is basically a timing mechanic. The way that a round of play can end is once all players have used all of their sun tiles, or once this raw track fills completely up. When a raw tile is drawn and a mandatory raw is initiated, players can pass. If all players pass, then you're just going to continue play as normal. If a player wins the auction, they're going to take what they won, replace the sun tile with their winning sun tile. Play continues as per normal. Now, before I go on and explain all the different tile types, what they mean, and how they score you points, I just want to show you these guys. These black outline tiles are going to be your disaster tiles. And when they come out, they're going to basically kill off 2 of the type of tile pictured. In this case, this is a Nile disaster. I think it's called a drought. And when a player wins an auction and collects all the tiles that has one of these disasters, they're going to have to discard 2 of that particular tile. So in this case, they're going to have to discard 2 of their Nile tiles. Either if there's some already on here, they can discard those, or if they have 2 on their player mats or in their player area, if you're not using the mats, they have to discard those. If they don't have to, that's fine. You just discard as many as you can. So you got to be really careful. When these guys come out, you know that the value of the tableau is going to be drastically reduced. This also introduces that push your luck mechanism, because you can keep drawing more and more tiles and things are looking really good, but then all of a sudden if you draw that, there's a good chance that you just killed the value of this. Another part of that press your luck is you may be drawing tiles out like so, and then all of a sudden all these raw tiles get put out. And say you have this track all the way filled up except for, say, the last one, and you're thinking, okay, it's my turn. Should I initiate a raw because maybe I have the highest value sun tile, so I know I'm going to win it. So I want to fill this up as much as I can so I can get as much bang for my buck. But then all of a sudden you draw another raw tile. Boom, you just ended the round. Once this is filled up, round is over. There's no final raw. It's just when this raw track fills up, it is the end of the round. I believe the game calls them epics or epochs, and there are 3 of them, and then the game is over. So let me get into scoring. At the end of each epoch, you're going to score. And you're going to score everything on the board except for these monuments. The monuments only score at the end of the game. So let me explain each of the tiles. The God tiles here are very valuable. If you don't use them, they're worth 2 points. And I say use them because this is a special tile that you can actually use during the course of the game. On your turn, if you have a God tile, you can take that God tile, discard it, and grab a tile from the raw auction track and place it into your play area. So that's a great way to cherry pick specific tiles that you need to maximize your points. So again, otherwise if you don't end up using it, then it'll just be worth 2 points. And it will get discarded at the after scoring, and you'll start over again. The gold here is worth 3 points, and again, after scoring, it will be discarded back in the box. The pharaohs here. Basically, you're going to count up the number of pharaohs that each player has. Whoever has the most pharaohs is going to get 5 points. Whoever has the fewest pharaohs is going to get -2 points. And players are going to share the points for tie. So if multiple players tie for having the least, they're all going to lose -2 points, and same for people tying with the most, gaining 5. Now, you see the red X here on the player map? That means that these tiles stay here throughout the entire game. So it's going to be a constant race for getting the most pharaoh tiles rather than having to reset it each round. So that's a really interesting mechanism. Now here you have your gray civilization tiles. Basically what you're trying to do is collect at least one of these. If you don't have any civilization tiles at the end of the round, you're going to lose 5 points. If you have 1 or 2 of them, you get 0 points, but at least you don't lose anything. If you have 3 different ones, you're going to get 5 points. If you have 4 different ones, you'll get 10, and if you have all 5, you'll get 15. And you can always collect the same ones. You'll just stack them on top of each other like so, but they're not going to count towards the 3 different, 4 different, or 5 different. All right, then down here you have your Nile tiles. This is actually the Nile here, and this is the flood tile. The way these work is that each Nile is going to count for 1 point if and only if you have a flood. So you can collect a whole bunch of these Nile tiles, but if you don't have any floods, it's worth 0 points. If you do happen to have a flood, then each flood is 1 point, and each Nile is worth 1 point. So this would be worth 2 points. This is worth 0 points. Now, you'll notice the red X on the Nile tiles, they stay every round, but the floods go away. The floods are probably one of the hottest commodities in the game, and a very common choice for players that have God tiles. They'll cash in that God tile to grab a flood. Because you can have this huge stack of Niles, say like 5, 6 Niles, but if you don't get a flood, it's all for naught. You get 0 points. You grab one, all of a sudden you have a ton of points. And finally, you have your monuments here. Now the monuments, you're going to score points depending on if you have like monuments stacked on top of each other, or if you have a bunch of different ones. And you can actually score both ways if you have several different ones and several duplicates. So you're going to get 1 to 6 points if you have 1 to 6 different ones. If you have 7 different, you'll get 10. You have 8 different, you'll get 15. And for identicals, if you have 3 identicals, you get 5. 4 identicals is 10 points, and 5 identicals is 15. So if you have 5 identicals plus maybe 2 others, you're going to score 15, 16, 17, 18 points right there. And these, remember, are going to stay from round to round because you see the red X's on them, and the red X's are on the tiles as well. So you're going to be spending the entire game trying to collect probably as many of these as you can because they are big points. And then finally, last but not least, you're going to sum up at the very end of the game the total value of all your sun tiles. Whoever has the highest point value is going to get 5 bonus points, and whoever is the lowest will lose 5 points. And that's really all there is to it. I think a good score in this is anywhere between, say, 40 and 50 points on an average game. And it's just a great auction game. So not a heck of a lot more I could say about Raw. Again, this is your quintessential auction game. It's really easy to teach. It's really easy to learn, and I found that a lot of intro gamers really enjoy it. Whenever I have new gamers over the house, like for example, I had my family over for Thanksgiving this year, and they never really played any board games, so the first thing we played was Raw, because I knew they would probably get a kick out of the auction mechanic, because there's a lot of interactivity between the players in this game, because you're trying to, you can trash talk as you're trying to say, oh, are you going to outbid me, or what are you going to bid, etc. And that's why I felt that this game would be a big hit, and it was, because I knew they weren't going to want to sit through an entire rule session to play Trojan, for example, but they'd be able to pick Raw up very quickly. I think you already know how I feel about the game. Raw is just an excellent set collection game. It's an excellent auction mechanic game. It's been around a while. It's from the master Rainier Knizia, so you can't go wrong with him. The components in the Uberplay edition are exceptional. I have seen some of the other editions where the tiles and things are a little bit smaller, and they're fine. It's 100% perfectly functional, but in my opinion, and I haven't played every version, but in the several that I have played, the Uberplay edition is definitely my favorite. Also, a similar game you may have seen is Priests of Ra, and that is an almost identical game. Mechanically, it's identical. There's just different ways to collect points, different tiles, etc. So that's another game if you have the option to pick up or maybe get in a trade. You can definitely look into that as well. But Ra is the original, and it's definitely the one to get. It's a great game. You should definitely pick it up if you don't have a copy in your collection already, because it definitely deserves to be sitting next to your Ticket to Ride and your Carcassonne and your Dominion as just the classic board games that everyone probably should have in their collection. So thanks for watching, and stay tuned for episode 31.